Yeah, what happened was I flatlined for 4.5 minutes. From the light, I could hear my mom saying, "Matthew, you need to fight. You need to fight to come back." And I remember thinking, I remember having a choice. I remember thinking, do I go back there or do I stay? She got to the door and the nurse said, "I'm sorry, you can't come in. This is really serious." And she said, "Look, I was there when he came in this world. If he's leaving this world right now, I'm going to be in that room." Nurse and every staff member and every doctor in the ICU had just gravitated outside the window. And there was 40 of them. They looked like this silent church choir, just like sending in this positive energy. He turned kind of back to the machine and said, "Wait a second, I think we have a pulse."
I saw what you posted on social media about your near-death experience. Can you share with our audience what happened to you and anything you can share? I'm just like riveted about these kinds of things. I think because they're of my own faith and my own hope about the afterlife, and everything. I'm just so excited to hear your experience. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so grateful that you're still here doing what you're doing, blessing lives and growing as a person and connecting with me today. So I'd love to hear anything you want to share there.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm grateful to be here too with you. Yeah, what happened was I flatlined for 4.5 minutes. I was born with my stomach twisted in a knot. I was supposed to die when I was born.
Wow.
And the scar tissue from the surgery they did then broke off kind of freakishly all these years later. It created a bowel obstruction. They didn't know it at the time. And so at the hospital, I just knew my stomach really hurted. And they did all these tests and they couldn't figure out what it was. And our COO, Helen, had been at the hospital. My parents had been at the hospital, and they sent them home and said, "Hey, you guys go home tonight and we'll keep Matt overnight. And if he's not better in the morning, then we'll do surgery then." And Helen drove home to our house, pulled into her driveway, and it was, almost midnight at this point. She'd been at the hospital all day, so she was exhausted. And she was going to get out of her car and something told her to go back to the hospital. So she drove back, and if she hadn't driven back, I would have died like 45 minutes later.
Wow.
Because the machines had not alerted the nurse. And so she went and got the nurse.
When you were flatlining, she was there to go tell someone. That's what you're saying.
I wasn't flatlining yet. My heart rate had plummeted at this point.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And she had come in to discover that. So she saw that my blood pressure was incredibly, dangerously low.
Wow.
And so she went and got the nurse. The nurse, like, this can't be right. She went and got the doctor. The doctor took one look, told me, they called in the crash team, rushed me into surgery. Came out of surgery, and then they said to my mom, the good news is we figured out what it is. It's a bowel obstruction. The bad news is that his heart rate's continuing to plummet. We don't know why, and he's in critical condition. A couple hours passed. My mom went downstairs to get my dad and my brother, and she came up the elevator, and she heard over the loudspeaker code blue in room 437. My mom works, or at the time worked in a hospital, and so she knows that means flatline, and she knows that's my room. And she got out of the elevator, she rushed down the hall, she got to the door, and the nurse said, "I'm sorry, you can't come in, this is really serious." And she said, "Look, I was there when he came in this world. If he's leaving this world right now, I'm going to be in that room." So she let her in the room, and they were doing the flatline, or they were doing the defibrillator, like the paddles that you see on TV, and they were doing the CPR compression, and I wasn't responding. I was flatlined, and my mom started to crumble. It's one thing to lose a child. It's nothing to be there when it's happening. And my dad was outside with my brother, and this doctor said to another doctor in front of my brother, not knowing it was my brother, that we think we lost this guy. We think he's gone. And so my brother pushed my dad in the room and said, "You got to be there with mom." So my dad kind of, if you're looking at the screen, my mom's face kind of to the, my right of the computer, and my dad came in from the left, and my dad was crying so loudly that my mom turned away from me to him to say, like, "Gary, you got to be quiet or they're going to kick us out of this room." and when she turned to say that to him, she said she saw something she'd never seen before in a hospital. She said every nurse and every staff member and every doctor in the ICU had just gravitated outside the window. And there was 40 of them. And they looked like this silent church choir, just like sending in this positive energy. And she was so moved by these people that were sending in love to someone that they didn't even know. She took a deep breath and she started coaching me. And she was like, Matthew David Pohlson, these people are fighting to save your life. They're fighting so hard to bring you back, but you are not fighting hard enough. You need to fight harder, Matthew David Pohlson. You need to fight to come back to us. And the flat line went on for 4.5 minutes. But and oftentimes they don't fight that long, but because she kept fighting, they kept fighting. At one point, she started to think, like, God, this has gone on too long. And I can't believe I'm going to lose my son. And if I lose my son, I'm probably going to lose my husband. And right as her mind was there, the main doctor shook his head as if to say, like, this is done.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And he turned away. My mom grabbed his arm and said, please don't call it. And right as she said that, he turned kind of back to the machine and said, wait a second, I think we have a pulse. And then they just watched as the machine kind of ticked along. And then all of a sudden, kind of out of nowhere, my eyes opened up. And I just kind of popped up.
Oh, wow.
And kind of like slowly lifted my right arm and gave a thumbs up.
Did you have any consciousness during any of this? Do you remember anything? Did you experience something?
It was the best way I can describe it. It was like I was in this like kind of, it's like if you're deep underwater, if you're watching a submarine movie and they kind of like, they look up at the surface of the ocean, and you can see just a little bit of light coming through. It's dark, but you can see a little light coming through. It was like that. And the water was like this cosmic energy water, where like a lot of traditions say when your ego dissolves, time dissolves, and you feel like both a drop in the ocean and the entire ocean. And it was amazing.
Wow.
Like, to me, that's love. Like it was everything you want. Love or God, whatever you want to, whatever it is to you, that's what it felt like. And then I could hear from the light, I could hear my mom saying, Matthew,
wow,
you need to fight to come back. And I remember thinking, like, I remember having a choice. I remember thinking, do I go back there or do I stay? I remember having like a conscious thought of like, okay, this is really hard to get back there. But people knew, my friends knew like this was going on, so they were sending me love. And I could feel that. I could feel it. I could see it. I could see that energy, and it was supporting me. And I remember it felt like an endless journey, but that was helping me get there. And it felt like it took 4 years to get back up there, not 4 minutes. And then I remember kind of finally getting closer and kind of accelerating, going like through the light, like kind of back like into the world, and then coming into the room. And I remember very clearly, I can picture it right now, of this, I just seeing this wall of faces, which was like the doctors and the nurses through the window, like just looking at me.
Oh.
And with their mouths like open, because apparently they hadn't.
You set up.
Yeah, because I sat up, but apparently they'd never seen that